Good morning and welcome. We're really pleased to see you here, and I know we're between change of classes and we'll probably have some other students wandering in, but we're really delighted to have you all here to find out more about human trafficking. My name is Lura Powell, and I am a member of Soroptimist International and our Tri-City Soroptimist Against Trafficking Task Force. Soroptimist is an international service organization that provides programs, scholarships, awards to help women and girls achieve their dreams and to live lives without violence and abuse. If you'd like to be notified about any future events, there is a Soroptimist against Tri-City Soroptimist Against Trafficking table in the back vestibule area, and there's some sign-up sheets, and we will include you in the database for notification. In addition, we have a second session showing this video and a panel this evening at 7 o'clock, so right here in the same room. So if you know of anyone, like my daughter, as a matter of fact, who is a CBC student who couldn't attend, that we will be doing it again at 7 p.m. I wanted to show you this because some of you may have noticed the backs of the t-shirts we're all wearing have this logo that basically it shows, you know, it's our awareness logo for the trafficking. And Stephanie King, who is a CBC student, did the design for this and graciously licensed it for free to the Soroptimist group. We want to express our sincere appreciation to the Associated Students of Columbia Basin College and to Rich Cummins and the CBC staff for their assistance for this event, and we're just so pleased that ASCBC wanted to co-sponsor this with us. I'd like to give some special appreciation to CBC President Rich Cummins. He couldn't be here today, had to be out of town, but Rich has been so incredibly generous in providing space and staff support for many trafficking awareness events as well as training events. And so thanks go out to Rich and the staff. We couldn't have done it without you, and we reached many people because of your generosity. I'd now like to ask Denise Lazaro, who's the president of the Associated Students of CBC, to come up and say a few words of welcome. Denise?
Thank you, Laura. So once again, I'd like to welcome you all to our human trafficking event hosted by the Tri-City Soroptimist Against Trafficking Force and ASCBC. Thank you all so much for coming. I would like to take this moment to thank all of those who helped put this event together, for all their hard work and dedication to make this event happen. The event is a short film with a panel afterwards, so if any questions arise, please make sure to get them answered. There is free popcorn and candy bars for you all to have, so make sure you get back there and grab some, because they're free. Again, thank you, and welcome to our human trafficking event.
Thank you, Denise. Okay, so now we're going to show the documentary called Here, Sex Trafficking in Our Community, followed by a panel. So be thinking of some questions you might want to ask of our panelists. This locally produced documentary describes sex trafficking in the Tri-Cities, including a depiction of an actual case. And it has recently been nominated for an Emmy Award, which we're very excited about. I think you're going to find it very eye-opening and informative.
The demand for younger victims is skyrocketing.
I really didn't think that there was human trafficking here at all.
I was also shocked that Seattle and Portland are the #2 major cities for human trafficking in the nation.
I wasn't trying to help them. I wasn't trying to be their friends.
This is so pervasive and evil, and it's everywhere, and I didn't even know about it.
That destroyed me. After that, it destroyed my thinking.
It is a worldwide epidemic, and it is claiming our children.
Modern-day slavery is the world's second largest crime. In 2013, the International Labor Organization estimated the number of victims at 20.9 million. But that's worldwide. Doesn't it mostly occur in third world countries? If it happens at all in the United States, it's only in the big cities, right? Not in your community, not in small-town America. That's what we thought too. Here, sex trafficking in our community? It's underground and few know much about it, except for the rare times it comes to light. But human trafficking does happen far from metro areas. You'll be amazed at what we found in our community.
We have a case here where there were girls who were minors who were pimped out on Backpage.com, and there were men from our community who bought sex from their pimps. That's in the Tri-Cities.
In southeastern Washington state, domestic minor sex trafficking grabbed headlines when Kennewick police arrested a madam who lured unwitting high school girls into a situation where they were forced to have sex with her clients.
No. I said 300 firm.
She kept the money and kept the girls compliant with threats.
The perpetrator, or the madam, was only a couple years older than the high school girls. They were out at the mall looking for work. She convinced them that she had a salsa and aerobics type class business going on that she could employ them at. She took them out and befriended them, led them to a home that she alleged was hers, was driving a nice car, saying that she was making about $1,800 a day. When she got to the motel room and found out that there was a client there, she was manipulated into having intercourse with this male, because the suspect, the female suspect, told her that if she didn't, she was going to tell her mother that she did anyway. The male was in his 60s, and she complied while the female suspect remained in the room and watched the act.
A madam had basically forced these juvenile females to perform sex acts for money.
It is very easy to confuse human trafficking with prostitution. Prostitution is occurring and money is exchanging hands, but the victims are not working willingly.
The idealized image of a prostitute as an entrepreneur in the pimp or madam is simply a business partner that brings clients or provides protection for a cut of the money couldn't be further from the truth.
In reality, the pimps are madams. Call them what you want to. They're traffickers. Coerce, manipulate, force, threaten these victims into performing intercourse with complete strangers, and it's the traffickers that make the money. The girls aren't seeing anything for their terrible experience.
When you traffic an individual, you can resell, they're a resellable commodity, and they can be pimped out 10, 15 times a day. And then the next day you can pimp them out again 10, 15 times that day. So reusable, resellable, and very willing victims sometimes because of the vulnerability, because they're young, and because they're brainwashed well.
Yes, I was manipulated into this. I felt like they kind of fooled us and tricked us into doing this. Once we were actually stuck in that situation, I felt like there was no more way out, and I felt like we didn't really have options anymore.
They don't believe people really understand what trafficking is, and instead might look at them as a prostitute who asked for it. And so that's a really difficult thing to be able to overcome and ask for help, because they're worried about stereotypes and judgments that are so easy for society to make.
Even though they were doing things that their initial choices were outside the norm for at least me and what I would want my daughter to do, it progressed into illegal activity, but they didn't feel they had a choice, and that makes them a victim.
Police records show that the trafficker would pick up the victims, take them to hotels, and stay with them in the rooms while Johns came and went. The madam was convicted of promoting commercial sexual abuse of a minor, a felony, and spent 18 months in jail. She maintained in court documents that she herself was a victim of trafficking at the age of 16, and in turn used that to control her victims.
I was afraid because of the things she would tell us, how there's always going to be someone out there to get us.
There was a time where I did tell the girls that the girl who pimped me out the first time when I was 17, that she was in the same hotel building, and I don't blame them for thinking what they thought, because I would have thought the same thing.
I started getting scared because she knew where we lived. She knew our family, she knew where we went to school, and I got scared.
But there's someone over them. There's someone who they feel that is controlling them, that they feel like they are being controlled by. And that's probably what the girls that I was putting out there, I feel like that's kind of how they felt over towards me, that I had more control over them than they had control of themselves.
There was a guy in there holding a gun, so I felt forced. When she'd tell us that they're a room down, the bodyguards and the lady, they'll take you away. She would tell us how they took 4 girls and she never saw them again.
One of those bodyguards did sit in the room with the 3 victims. So they believed that this was a real threat.
If I go to the police or if I tell anybody this person would do this to me, or I was mostly scared.
Most adults would view these threats as bluffs, but perpetrators know that minors are easy targets for manipulation.
Let's remember, we're talking about minor children that don't have the ability to make good decisions, that are being lured into sexual exploitation.
I promise, you're gonna love it. I do it all the time.
At first, manipulation, winning them over, convincing them, finding girls with low self-esteem.
Oftentimes people who have been trafficked were really tricked and lured into doing that. There may be somebody that they really trusted that gave them some sort of affection or really played to their weaknesses in terms of low self-esteem and made them feel good about themselves.
I wasn't trying to help them. I wasn't trying to be their friends. I was using them. And I do believe that it was for my own selfish reasons.
You're gonna love it. Just wait till you see the pool. It's amazing.
She had the lack of conscience. I can't fully grasp that myself. On one occasion, there was one of the 3 victims that was literally crying during the course of the act, and her friend held her hand to help her get through it with all 4 of them in the room.
Sometimes it takes years for trafficking victims to seek help, and some never do out of fear or shame.
That destroyed me. After that, it destroyed my thinking.
I feel like I didn't even deserve to live anymore. Or I feel like I wasn't worthy of anything, I guess. Because by doing that, I felt like I was the lowest of the low, I guess, or something, or just not worthy of anything or anybody.
The Support, Advocacy, and Resource Center in the Tri-Cities reports that of the over 400 victims they assisted last year, nearly 50%, including trafficking survivors, were assaulted by family members.
The trafficking victims that we have seen have mostly been through family at this point. I can't say that's the majority of trafficking victims, that's just what we have seen. And the majority of those have actually been trafficked by their moms. And what has happened is the mother has used their child and put them out there to make money for rent, to make money for food, because unfortunately, the younger the victim, the more money that can be brought in.
And I said, I want her out of that home. So I kept her and I called the police. I said, I'm not letting her go home until somebody can prove to me that that home is safe. So I had a young girl, an elementary child. She's way into her pregnancy, and she comes and reports another sexual assault. The mom wasn't home again, and the boyfriend was there, and they live in this apartment house, and this is somebody else from the apartment house. And so you started thinking, gosh, this man, it appears, is sharing her with whoever's in the building for whatever reasons, this young person, and that should never happen to a young person. And so Pasco Police Department was amazingly gracious, and they came and took her, which forced the state to have to take her into custody, and she hasn't returned back to the family. What if we hadn't stepped in? What if we had let that continue? She'd already been robbed of her childhood. You know, are we going to rob her of the rest of her young adult life? Not okay. Not okay.
And so it's really easy to see how someone who has not been able to heal, who has been told and taught that their body doesn't matter, could easily fall into trafficking because they have already had the precious part of being able to say no to someone taken away. So really to them, it's just happening again.
Some people can't comprehend things so horrific, so they assume it doesn't happen here. People in the community began asking questions and quickly realized that awareness was needed first in order to address the problem. Area Soroptimist clubs formed a task force to raise awareness. As a result, 2 educational programs are now available for our middle and high school students.
What surprised me when I saw the Deceptions program was that human trafficking isn't just an issue in other parts of the world, it's an issue in our own towns, and it's happening right here and right now, and it could be happening to people we know. This doesn't just happen to people who are, always out there and, flaunting themselves to people. It happens to people who think they're safe.
Get to the side on Enmoto, and then
I was really shocked by how young the kids are that are being really abducted into this. 13 was the average age, and that is really scary to me to think about, that there's kids younger than 13 that make up that average.
The second program, Illusions, provides education about pornography, which has direct links to demand for trafficking victims.
One of the things that's been seen by studies is that pornography is a gateway into being a John. With drugs, you can take drugs out of your system. It may be a hard process, but you can go through that detox and it will leave your body. With pornography, once it's in your mind, you can't get that image out.
I absolutely believe that there is a link between pornography and trafficking.
A lot more people than we realize with sex addiction that are watching pornography in secret and living a life of shame. And those women and girls in the pornography are almost all sex trafficked.
The stuff that leads up to it. Why is the prostitute in this position? Do they truly like having sex with random people for money? I highly doubt that. That's my opinion. But the underlying issue is, where's the demand coming from? Why do we have this demand? And why are there women, and in the Kennewick Police Department's case, why do we have underage people involved in this? And how do we stop it? How do we combat it? That's a difficult, very difficult situation to try and dissect.
These men were much, much older. I'm like, what if they have daughters or something? It made me think a lot because, I mean, there's some sick people out there. You know, you don't know that. Obviously, to go do what, you know, to go buy sex, I guess, or, I mean, especially, you know, some of them knew our age. They didn't care. I mean, they'd see us hiding or something, or cuddled up in a corner of the room, like scared, or just, you know, me and my friend would actually lock ourselves in the bathroom for a really long time, kind of trying to get ourselves together because we knew we had to come out sooner or later, you know? And they'd like knock on the door, knock on the door, knock on the door, and it was I don't know. It was hard to just come out there knowing what was going to happen. We already knew.
The Johns weren't atypical. They're a cross-section of men, and from affluent to blue-collar, across the board.
I truly believe that to help eradicate this issue is we definitely got to address the demand. We've got to do something about that demand.
But you can go to websites like Backpage. This case brought out Backpage. I wasn't even aware that this site even existed until the first predator told us how she was advertising the girls and putting their pictures online.
We have to take a look at attacking the supply, but we also have to take a look at the demand and really targeting the people that are demanding these services, and spending a lot of time looking at the Craigslist investigations, the Backpage.com investigations, throwing resources at doing sting operations and undercover operations to try and eradicate the demand from the equation as well.
The girls as well as the men are human beings, and there's a problem. It's a hard attitude issue, and it can't be solved by rules and regulations. It's got to be solved through love and through Christ. And they have no idea. Even the men don't even realize that they're destroying these women like they are.
In an outreach to hurting women, the Freed Ministry's SOAP project is a hands-on approach to help free women trapped in trafficking.
SOAP is both an acronym and literally soap. We're taking soaps with labels on them, soap bars, to hotels and motels in the area, asking them to put them in the bathrooms, because usually the girls, the only time they're alone is usually in the bathroom. So they'll see the soap bar, and the label has on it the National Trafficking Hotline, so they can know the number, and when they are at their low point and they're ready for help, they can call the number.
While the hotline can't divulge if calls were from potential victims seeking help, there have been at least 10 calls to the hotline number from this area since the SOAP project was initiated.
Don't stay quiet. It only makes things worse when you're quiet. You know, you're keeping everything to yourself, so how is anybody ever supposed to help you?
But it's not that easy, especially for those caught in gang trafficking, when making the choice to seek help is literally a life and death matter.
At SARC, we have had a variety of clients in the past who have come forward who have been trafficked through gangs. And it's really a very difficult issue to address because there is so much legitimate fear.
In nearby Sunnyside, a gang killed a 14-year-old female member to keep her from reporting being trafficked. Witnesses said she was stabbed to death and her body dumped in a canal as a warning to others.
And I'm sorry to make it this kind of comparison, but what will you do with, number one, what will you do with a cow that produces milk that doesn't produce milk anymore? You kill it. So when a gang member, lady or girl, leaves a gang, that's for them is like a cow that doesn't produce milk, doesn't produce money. So guess what? You're gonna get hurt if we go.
The reason you can't get out is because you've been threatened. You've seen what can happen to those who've tried to get out. There's certain individuals that are made examples of, that if you try, this is what can happen. So there's this fear and there's this trauma bond on you that's so horrific. You feel alone.
But oftentimes we have to look at it as a gang culture, and it's something that it's maybe not their choice, is what they're raised in. It's something that they are brought up into, in that kind of way of thinking and living.
The reality hits when they're being forced to do things that they choose and ask not to be a part of. That's when they're told it's payback time. You're told over and over again that your family won't believe you, no one will want you. Law enforcement thinks you're a criminal, so you can't go to them, so who's gonna help you?
I was gang affiliated for many years and came out of the gang lifestyle, opened up an organization called Freedom and Gang Outreach. It's a Spanish term, Latin word for firm, foundation, or strength. It's an acronym as well as finding, impacting, redirecting gangs through mentorship and education. So we help youth and adults that are trying to change their lifestyle, and also with young girls and older ladies that have been sex trafficked through the gang.
Helping trafficking victims is a crucial component of breaking the manipulation and abuse that's become a way of life to victims, something survivor Khurshida Begum knows about firsthand.
There was 9 of us that were brought here from Bangladesh through the international airports of SeaTac into Oakville, Washington. We were forced to work in the farm, which was a form of labor trafficking. We weren't paid. We were forced to work there, and we were not able to come and go as we pleased. As well as part of sex trafficking was in there as well, because him and his friends could come and go as they chose with us.
An outspoken advocate for survivors, her case in the rural community of Grays Harbor was the first of its kind tried in Washington state back in 1985.
Our trafficker knew the vulnerable state that my father was in with all these children, with all of us. He was unable to provide us the basic needs.
Whether it's labor trafficking or sex trafficking, there is one factor common to all victims.
They find people that are extremely vulnerable, and they promise them things and opportunities, and the vulnerable person has no choice but to take those opportunities. Whether it's my father from a third world country or somebody that is from an educated middle-class family.
If the public can learn what to look for, they can begin to help solve the problem.
And not one person stopped to ask us, what was this man, Caucasian man in his mid-40s, doing with 9 children from a different country? What I live by is if you see something, you do something. You feel something in your gut, you do something.
And that is exactly what is beginning to happen in this community. We're fighting back. A Tri-Cities coalition against trafficking formed with over 20 participating government agencies, businesses, not-for-profit agencies, and faith-based groups. The coalition arranged for first responder training for those on the front lines dealing with this issue.
I think that a lot of educators, as well as people out in the general community, are not even aware that this is an issue here in our Tri-Cities community. And so being able to provide some information and training to our school staff who may be working with young people who are impacted by child sexual exploitation are not even aware of it. So then they can help intervene, refer a youth to the proper people who can help support them.
In addition, law enforcement continues educating through citizens academies, which are offered in communities around the state.
The Citizens Academies will teach you what to look for as far as gang activity, how to identify when they're seeing gang activity. A lot of the sex trafficking and things that we see around here is gang related, especially with the minors.
Some of the best cases are when neighbors call in and go, something weird's going on over there. And we don't have a case initially, but we start paying attention because somebody said, that's not normal. And then we start seeing things and verifying, well, that isn't normal.
I'd say unusual amounts of pedestrian or automobile traffic, especially to a specific location. And anything else that just really doesn't set right with you is worth a call to the police and let us come check it out.
As awareness is growing and pressure is applied to those responsible, it's clear parents need to be more vigilant than ever.
It really does happen underneath parents' noses, regardless of their best intentions.
If we can really pay attention to young adults in their lives, I feel that we wouldn't have that need to get attention from the outside world. Outside meaning just the wrong side of life.
Remember, you're at a safe place right now. You're talking to a safe person.
The only way we're going to be able to help these victims, the majority of them being children who are attending school, who are seen in the community, who are at the mall, who may be in your church, is that we need to step up and make a difference and call.
This is a very uncomfortable issue to talk about, but I can guarantee you that if we are not the voice, and if we are not the hands that reach out to the victims, who will be?
Our community needs to take human trafficking, domestic minor sex trafficking, seriously.
People really need to know what the faces of exploitation really look like. And I think that's what it is. It's putting faces, familiar faces, white faces and black and brown and yellow, whatever it is, young, old, very young, male, female, putting faces to this because people need to know that it could happen to anyone.
If it's not our daughter, our niece, our son, our nephew, who is a direct victim, it may be our best friends or the neighbor down the street. But it's here, and it has to be addressed. We can't turn a blind eye and hope that it will go away. Because when evil is not confronted, it grows, and it will take over.
It's okay, you can clap. It's a great documentary. Although I can tell you the first time that I saw it, you know, I was just absolutely stunned because I would never have believed that stuff like this was going on in our community, which I always considered to be safe and, you know, that we'd never have anything like this happen. I'd like to now invite the panel to come up if we can raise the screen. Okay, I'd like to introduce our panel members. To my immediate left is David Wheeler, who is the Intervention Services Manager with the Benton County's Juvenile Justice. Next to him is our moderator, Tirsa Butler, who is co-director of the Tri-Cities Coalition Against Trafficking and a principal with Butler Law. And then to her left is Karen Kirk-Brockman, who is the Executive Director of Safe Harbor, and which sponsors a wonderful program called My Friend's Place, which is available for homeless youth to stay in a safe environment. So, Tirsa?
All right. Am I on?
Yeah.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to just ask Dave and Karen, if you could talk about your organizations and give us a sense of how you have seen human trafficking within your organization and how you see addressing it moving forward. So, Dave?
Yes, my name is Dave Wheeler, and as Laura said, I am the Intervention Program Manager at the Benton County Juvenile Court. I've worked at our juvenile court now for the last 23 years, and this is one of those issues that I think, by and large, we do not do a very good job of detecting through the juvenile court. We have a number of screening tools that we do with the kids that come through, but I don't know that it really gets to this issue. And I think it's something that we have oftentimes felt that there's something in our gut telling us there's something really wrong with this situation. We've seen kids put themselves in very high-risk situations where they don't avail themselves to the court, they're not at home, they're running the streets, and you know they're putting themselves in very dangerous, difficult, bad situations, and you wonder what could be going on. But by and large, I think we have not done a very good job at the court of really identifying and trying to bring services to these victims of commercial sexual exploitation of children. And so I think with this, as troubling and as concerning as this is, I think this is bringing forward an opportunity to really look at what we can do better as a community to identify where these victims are, to identify the offenders and aggressively prosecute the offenders, and to get services and support for the victims through this. And so, this is all still fairly new in our realm in terms of, bringing together some more awareness to our staff. We're looking forward to some ongoing opportunities through training that I maybe discussed more here in a little bit, but getting our staff better trained. At the state level, they're looking to develop a better protocol or a better screening tool that helps our staff better identify where a child may be a victim of sex trafficking, and then to be able to provide a coordinated response. And so, right now in this community, if one of our probation counselors were to have a concern, we know that now there is a process, a multidisciplinary team process that we can pull together and try to bring about players from various systems, law enforcement, the prosecutor's office, the Sexual Assault Response Center, and other maybe key partners that can help look at, how do we support the victim and the victim's family through this very difficult situation. So, and this is all really new within the last year, largely in thanks to the work of the Soroptimist and the Tri-City Coalition Against Trafficking that really is looking to bring this kind of a coordinated response to this community. So it's, again, we're kind of at the ground floor right now, but looking forward into the future, I think we're going to do a much better job at the court of identifying, and that we know now that there's a better response, so that when you do get that kind of information, you know what to do with it. And so I guess
sounds good. Karen, can you go ahead and address the same question from My Friend's Place and your organization's point of view?
I wish I could say that this was something I haven't seen before, but since I've been involved and running My Friend's Place, and which is a homeless teen shelter here, a predominant number of our kids that come into our shelter to stay with us have been trafficked in one form or another. And from the perspective of children, when they are homeless and don't have a support system, the kids that we see, males and females, is that the only commodity they have is their body. And when you're cold and you've been so cold you can't get warm, and there's no shelter for you, and you are starving and you are hungry out there, and your stomach, it goes beyond rumbling, to a point where you pass out from hunger and those types of things, you'll do anything to get warm, to get fed. And if you have no family to support you and no friends or individuals in your life that are positive role models, the only thing that you can be taken from you is your body and your choice. And so, unfortunately, most of the children, if they aren't taken off the street right away, they are exploited and they are trafficked. And we have kids that are involved with gangs or have been prior gang involved, and they are exploited as well. And so they are passed around, getting them out of their environment, getting them someplace where we can provide them shelter and food, get them back into school, and intervene. Then we're able to affect change. Like I said, I wish this was something I didn't see, but we see it all the time at our shelter. So I'm glad that education is happening out there, because people actually need to know this doesn't just happen in Sunnyside and up the valley. It is happening right here in all of our schools. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here, and any questions you guys have, I'll be more than happy to answer.
And I wanted to take an opportunity to just talk about Tri-City Coalition Against Trafficking, which was mentioned by both Karen and by Dave, and that is, In September 2012, there was a roundtable of basically any organization who would touch on commercial sexual exploitation of children. We pulled everyone together, and you saw a clip of that in the video. And we basically said, are you seeing this? If you are, what services do you provide? Or what other organizations do you look to provide services? And it was very enlightening for us to hear the information coming in, not only from the law enforcement side, but also from the service provider side, and seeing the disconnect. From there, we put together a steering committee, which has been moving forward in providing education and awareness within the community. Part of that was becoming a pilot site for the statewide protocol, the 2-day training, which you also saw as a clip in the video. We had over 70 attendees there, and that meant we had somebody from every law enforcement, we had from the education, from service providers coming together so that now when a child is identified, we know how to respond, or at least we think we do, and we have a lot to learn. So I would say to you, as you're sitting here, you are the community. You are the ones who probably are seeing this. There is a booth in the back for Services Advocacy Resource Center, SARC. Renee is manning that. Is Renee here? If you know of somebody, Renee, wave, okay? If you know of anybody who has been a victim of this, or you have somebody who you think needs help, SARC is that first call to say, here's somebody who we think needs some assistance. So I just wanted to point out for you as community members, you as the youth in our community, that's who to call. Call SARC as your first response. So that's kind of who we are, each of the three of us. We have service provider coming from Karen, we have government agency coming from Dave, and then for me, kind of the grassroots effort. So any questions that came up in your minds from watching the video or for any of the three of us? Okay. Karen, what are some things that you have seen that you would want to say to this group about how to help or what to look for?
Primarily, I think what happens with kids, and we need to take it to this perspective. I mean, there are, McDonald's gives out the gift certificates for a $1 meal, $1 meal type of thing. I'm thinking about it from a child's perspective. If you don't have $1, you don't have $1, and it means you can't get fed. And these kids, because of this vulnerability, that's part of the, what do we see? What can you do? I think if you know of anybody that's couch surfing that hasn't yet hit the streets, intervene, call, get services in place, because the minute they hit the streets, inside of a week, they'll be at places like the Thunderbird or places like that, and they will be exploited, and it's just a matter of time. If you can get to them, if you know of them, let them know that there are places that they can go to. They can come to our shelter as long as they aren't, as long as they don't have warrant status, and as long as they're not runaways. And even if they are runaways, we can still harbor them for a while to try to connect them, but we need to get them before they hit the streets. If you're able to do that, and you know anybody that's couch surfing, they are the next victims that are going to be coming into our area. So that's what I would say. If you know them, get a hold of us.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, question. If you could go to the microphone, just because this is being recorded, I'd appreciate it.
Hi, so I'm Tony, and my question is, are kids from stable home environments at risk, and what puts them at risk?
Okay.
Well, I think that's a really good question. I think that kids are at risk from just about every environment, depending on, even if there's stability with their parents, are they stable in school? Is there something that they're afraid to talk to their parents about, sexual orientation, things like that? You can exploit people on their weakness, and so even if they've got a strong family support, if there's an issue going on with that individual child, they could be exploited. I would say the chances are less. Children that are homeless that don't have any are obviously going to be exploited very quickly. So the better support systems, yes, they're going to be less exploited. But that's what I've seen.
Dave, any thoughts on that one?
No, I agree. I think this, my opinion would be, and from what I've seen in my years through the juvenile court, that those that have a stable home environment, parents usually have a pretty good handle on what their children are doing and what they're doing. They're monitoring their school, they're monitoring their friends, and the more involved and invested a parent is in their child's life, I think the less likely they are to become a victim of child sex trafficking or minor sex trafficking. So, and that's just been my experience. It just seems like where we see kids putting themselves more at risk, or where they don't have a lot of healthy supervision or good supports. We see kids that are living in homes with a lot of chaos or dysfunction. They lack other kind of pro-social appropriate role models and peers, so they don't really have other adults in their lives that are there connecting with them. They haven't felt terribly connected with schools, so they're not involved in the school process. So just again, my opinion to generalize, the more stable the home, the less likely I would expect this to be at place.
Okay, thank you. And I had another question.
Can I address that one real quick first? Your question. I wanted to just say that while this is true in general, I think it is not in specific. So I can go to a case which was just, there was just a conviction, and it was a high school cheerleader in Lake Oswego, which is an upper middle class community in Oregon, who prostituted another cheerleader, a younger one, in the state of Washington. They both came from upper middle class families where there was involved parents and there were safety nets in place, and yet one prostituted the other. And so I say, there are factors that increase risk, but every child has unmet needs and desires. And if those unmet needs and desires are picked up upon and then used to coerce, then that can be used. So, next question.
Okay. Thank you. So the next question is that, do you feel as though individuals who participate in teen shelters and shelters for runaways, those are really counterproductive toward the sex industry? Those who spend their time to help runaways and to offer shelter, food, and clothing, those are really beneficiary to prevent sex trade with amongst runaways? Because I know someone that's doing that, and you brought up that those without shelter and food, they're most likely to fall into to become a victim of sex trade. So do you feel that is a really productive way that anyone here could help prevent sex trade from happening?
Well, I'd say absolutely, because our kids are off the street. Our kids that are in the shelter are being fed. They don't have to worry about prostituting to get their, to get their hunger taken care of. When they're inside of a shelter, they're warm. They have clothes. They have, that sort of thing. And so, anything that meets your basic human needs, and shelters are able to do that, then you're less likely to have something that they can exploit. Now, they may not have cash on hand, but we have resources there, with counselors and with case managers that can get the kids tied back into community services. If they have substance abuse because they've been exploited, if they have a drug habit, children can be exploited, and sex trafficked because they need to feed their habit. So whatever we can do to stop that and intervene in and change the direction for a child, then we're able to, I think, significantly impact children that are out there being trafficked. So, and you can help by coming in and volunteering. We love to have community members come in. If you want to come in and take a tour, please do. Ask the questions. Don't be afraid to step forward and say, I'm willing to, do something for my fellow human, person next to me because I care. So, we welcome people.
And I think part of it comes down to the shelter, to be perfectly honest. Karen with My Friend's Place, runs a pretty tight ship, and there are shelters where they're actually recruiting grounds. So it depends on the shelter, to be honest. But as Karen said, if the basic needs are met, then there are less tools to be manipulated against them to force them into something they may not choose to do.
And one more thing, we provide, I think, positive role models, you know, for kids that, you know, we model, we live what we talk. We're walking the walk, we're doing what we're supposed to do. So I think that that matters too. Some of the other shelters, like she said, and I'm not talking bad about them, it's because of the overcrowding and those types of issues. Some of our kids are so young emotionally that they should not be in an adult shelter, because then they don't have coping mechanisms either, and that also can further exploitation for kids. So our shelter is around supervision and about accountability, and you know, we do have curfews. They have to be involved with schools. They can't have warrants. We have expectations for them, just like any other place does for children.
I think if you're looking at volunteer opportunities or ways that you can affect change within the community, look at the organization to begin with. You all have your spidey senses that say, something's off here, something's just a little weird. Rely upon that. You have that for a reason. Look at the organization. Are the kids that are being served there, do they believe that it's in helping their life? Ask them, is this a positive in your life? You know, they're going to be honest with you in most situations, I would say. So there are ways to volunteer at my friend's place, Tri-State Union Gospel Mission, SARC. If you're available, if you know somebody who is interested in mentoring, Ignite Mentoring, volunteering with Fairmay, with the gang outreach, all of those are really good options for you to reach out to your community. So.
Okay, so then anyone in the audience could participate in any of those things and then help prevent sex trade. So if anyone was like deeply moved by the movie, they would have that availability to help prevent it?
Exactly.
Okay, and then so another thing like to add on is that like those who are involved with like school systems, like the Boys and Girls Club, like those are all also preventative type measures that help like reduce the amount of sex trade because they see someone that cares and then they have more value within themselves?
Right, yes. And Boys and Girls Club is one that we love as Soroptimists. We volunteer there as mentors, and anywhere that you can have a positive impact upon others, or where you can be mentored by those who are doing it. Both of those are important, that if you want to give back to your community, also finding somebody to mentor you. So I can say that as I've been becoming more involved within my involvement with anti-human trafficking efforts here in the community and statewide, I've had mentors who have mentored me along the way. So find that for yourself as well. And that's something you can find at Boys and Girls Club or Fairmay or Ignite. Any of those have mentors available. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So then we all can like help prevent just by like contributing toward like younger adolescents and like mentoring them within like sports programs or helping out with a shelter, like, or just donating to a shelter. There's plenty of options to help.
Yep, all really good options.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, just wanted to clarify. Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you. All right, it looks like we are at time, so Lura.
I want to thank you all for coming, answering some really good questions, and I'm hopeful that this has opened your eyes to some of the things that go on that we don't expect. And I appreciate the good questions that sort of raise some of the issues about things that you can do in your own community. If you're interested in future trafficking events, there is a table out back in the vestibule, as I mentioned earlier, where you can sign up for that. We also have a number of information tables of community organizations which deal with human trafficking. So if you have an interest in some of those, that's an opportunity as well. So I think the big message is that sort of comes across with all this. I think Khurshida Begum on the video said it well. If you see something, say something. If you see something that's off, if you notice one of your friends or fellow classmates or someone that you know seems really troubled and you're suspicious, do something and say something. And as Tirsa pointed out, if the person is troubled and is undergoing an abuse situation, SARC is a great place to have them go. So I want to thank you all again for coming, and we look forward to perhaps seeing some of you at future events. Thank you.
Thank you.